Herodotus further says, Candavle, who the Greeks called Myrcilo, was the king of Sardis, who comes from Alceus, the son of Heracles. Argon, the son of Nino, the son of Belo, the son of Alceus, was the first Heraclic to become the king of Sardis, just as Candavle, son of Mir, was the last. Here Herodotus calls Sargon of Nino, Here Herodotus calls Ninos Sargon Agron. In some editions of Herodotus it is found as Argon, without the initial letter Sima. Agriani, Agramani, and Agrioni is the very common copy of the Serbian name in the works of old writers. The Serbs from town of Srbica, Sofia, are called Agrians, and that is how they call Serbs when they are mentioned in the army of Alexander the Great. The town of Serbinovo was transferred to Agram. An inscription on stele dedicated to Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius by the city of Serdica stated that the stele was dedicated to the very famous city of Serdica. The ruler who is often most mentioned in history as Sargon I was, as we have already said, the son of Nino and Semirama. The time of his appearance, first as the co-ruler of his mother and then as an emperor, is usually taken around 1090 BC, since then he has been mentioned first as Tsarikum, which is called Tsarevich. Some people think that this Zarihum or Zarihom could also mean a king priest, and that is what Sharoken, that is Sargon, came from. Philip Grosse says that Shargun in the Assyrian title, and that the ruler who built the palace in Horsabad was called Sargina. Grosse then adds that Syrians had Horsabad Sarghun until the Arab conquest. Horsabad is referred to under the old name as Dur Sargina. It is in fact Dur Sarbina. In the fourth Ninovich, the grandson of Sargon, was called Arius. Herodotus also tells us, those who ruled this country before Argon came from the people of the son of Attis. That Attis was considered the son of Mane, and Mane was considered the first Devonian ruler of Aryans in India, and the first legislator according to tradition. Mane is mentioned as the first ruler among the Aryans in the east, among the Serbian tribes in Asia Minor, and even in Egypt. Mane, whose name Greeks write as Manes, according to tradition, the first king of Egypt. The divine role of fire, and fire is closely related to the sun, so as a distinct representative of the sun, Serbon dies in only one way, by jumping into fire. As a sun deity, Serbon has the role of a god of fertility and nature, greenery and plants, in which he identifies with Bak. The Greeks called Serbon Heracles, and his appearance among the Greeks is at least 1,000 years younger than his appearance among the Serbs. Heracles never took on all the characteristics of a Serbon, nor did he have the same significance. Heracles is narrow and rather pale image of Serbon. While Heracles, the son of God, is a son of God and a demigod, Serbon is one of the main gods. Diodorus says that Heracles appeared to the Greeks one generation before the Trojan War. The usual representation of Serbon and Heracles was a statue of a giant dressed in a lion's skin with the heavy tolem mace, which he holds in his hands or leans on. Diodorus says that Ptolemy and lion skin are a future of the older Heracles. The older Heracles, when Diodorus thinks about, is Serbon. Grosse notes that main Assyrian deity was Asarak, which is Assur from the Holy Scriptures. After his death, he was placed in pantheon and celebrated as father of the gods. That Asarak is Sarak, that is Sarbak or Serbon. This means that he was a man, the king of Assyria, and not an imaginary god. That name is not alone. Sarbak is also a Media ruler. The same writer tells us that the Phoenicians called one god Orculus, and that this deity represents general light, which is in fact the god Belo, when translation 72 says that he is Heracles. They compared it to Jupiter, Saturn and Mars. From the name Orkul, which is certainly not a name but a calling according to one of the roles of that deity, came the name Hercules or Heracles. Pirenne says that Sandon was Phoenician god when the Greeks recognized him as Heracles. Thus, the reduced role of Heracles among the Greeks, in addition to the Serbs, was due to their political reality. The Greeks never had powerful kings or great dynasties. It does not exist in the Greek language a title that corresponds to the title of emperor, but they also use the title of king for the emperor. After all, the Greek understanding of state never went beyond polis, the city-state. None of the Greek thinkers could conceive of a state other than city-state. The great kingdoms or empires were incompatible with the Greek understanding of the state. In particular, they could not understand the concept of empire, that is, a state of several people or several different cultures. The whole Greek national essence was based on the understanding that there are only two categories of peoples, Hellenes and barbarians. The whole of Greek national philosophy, so to speak, was based on that understanding, and that is clearly seen not only in their philosophers but also in historians, as in Herodotus and Thucydides. Such an understanding excluded the notion of the empire as a state. It was absolutely unacceptable for them that other nations have the same rights as Greeks. Therefore, Heracles could not be identified with Serbon. Indian historians point out as the main feature of the Aryans that they, unlike other people who knew only about the cities of the state, created powerful monarchies and empires in vast areas, including various people. These ideas are clearly manifested in the empire of Alexander the Great after the conquest of Asia. It was pan-empire, state of all her people with equal rights and responsibilities. Peoples whose state and ruling traditions were not abolished, but Alexander only took on a role of their ruler, which is literally and clearly pointed out. The second expedition to Asia was carried out by Serbs as well as the first, and that is proven by the name of the people, those parts that remained in India after the second expansion. That is proven by the faith and customs of that people, and especially by their language. As for the real name of the leader of the second campaign, the Holy Scriptures give us the name Assur, but it is Surya, Serbon, abbreviated Sur, which is the same as Assur, only with the difference that a prefix A is added to that name in foreign languages. Pliny says that Syria means Assyria, that is, that Assyria is part of Syria. George Smith says that Syria is abbreviated from Assyria. Herodotus says that the Greeks called Assyrians the Suri and the barbarians the Assyrians. It means that Syria and Assyria are one and the same, Surya, as the people who live in it call it. At the time of the Persian Empire, there was a personal name, Surena, which is obviously of same origin. Surya is one of the names of the sun god, and it is equally found among the Serbs in Europe and Asia. Among the Aryans in India, Surya is one of the great and ancient gods, the representative of the sun. Among the Serbs in Balkans, one deity of the time is mentioned under the name of Sur, which they celebrated at the beginning of the year. Assyrian culture is all about the sun god Sura or Asura. Serbon is a deity of the sun, in fact Surya or Asur. There is other evidence of Assyria's connection with Serbon and Serbs. The two rivers of which Assyria began its existence, that is, the original Assyria, bear the Serbian name as Big or Small Serba. The area between those two rivers was called Serbiana. Claudia Ptolemy gives geographic coordinates for city of Sarbenda in the area between the two rivers Serba. In addition to the city of Sarbenda, Ptolemy gives us data of another city, Sarbena.